8:30 a.m. in Afghanistan right now, where Taliban fighters have captured the city of Jalalabad, the capital of Nangarhar province. It was one of two remaining government strongholds and really just a few hours' drive away from the capital, Kabul. The collapse of that eastern city would mean another major setback for President Ashraf Ghani's government and would put the Taliban effectively in control of most of the country. Earlier, the group's fighters seized a hugely important commercial hub and a government bastion, Mazar-e-Sharif. The fall of Afghanistan's fourth largest city puts it in control of all northern provinces and means that Kabul is now dangerously within reach of the armed group. So with those forces crumbling in the face of the Taliban surge, the US is sending thousands of its troops back to Afghanistan, but this is to support the ongoing withdrawal and to help evacuate American diplomats and staff. President Joe Biden says he will support a political settlement, but insists any assault by the Taliban on the US military will be met with what he called a swift and strong response. So the fear now, and I mentioned this a couple of times, is that the Taliban's getting very, very close indeed to Kabul. Have a look at this. We've got the Google map for you. Afghanistan as a whole there. I'll zoom in on Kabul and I will drop a little marker down on the capital, and let's see where it takes us in the region. Heading in this direction. Sorry, I've just lost it there. There we go. Mazar-e-Sharif, which we just heard about, 300 kilometres away. Kunduz, 240 kilometres away. And then further to the south, you've got Ghazni, 126, and Jalalabad, which we mentioned, incredibly close, 115 kilometres as the crow flies from Kabul, which is where Charlotte Bellis is reporting from for us this morning. I mean, it's just every 24 hours that we talk to you at this point, Charlotte, the cities just keep falling.
Yeah, the list is certainly growing. It is hard to keep up. We are out to number 24 of the provincial capitals that have fallen to the Taliban, of a total of 34, and that has happened in just 9 days now. So the Taliban certainly steamrolling its way across the country. The two provinces that it has picked up overnight and early this morning are Laghman and Nangarhar, picked up their provincial capitals. They are directly east of Kabul. They actually border Kabul to the east, and the government had been fighting incredibly hard to keep those. Not only are they close to Kabul, but they essentially cut Kabul off from Pakistan because their main trade route had been to Torkham Crossing, where you have to go through Laghman and you have to go through Nangarhar to get to Torkham Crossing. So, and that is how a lot of the city resupplied through that highway. So incredibly worrying for the government now to have that cut. Also, Logar, the province directly to the south of Kabul, fell on Friday, and directly to the west of Kabul, Wardak is under heavy pressure. I had a video, got a video yesterday showing Taliban on the roads in Maidan Shah. They've taken over some government facilities there. It's the main city in Wardak, and it's only about a 45-minute drive from here. So Kabul becoming increasingly encircled, the government under heavy pressure. Ghani spoke yesterday briefly in an address to the nation. He was, the talk here had been that he might resign, but he offered trying to kind of support the forces and say that he's looking after his people, and he does want to consult with international and local leaders. But we understand negotiations are going on behind the scene on essentially his future and whether he will stay on as president.
Tell me what it's like in Kabul at the moment, Charlotte. The fear, obviously, that the Taliban is getting ever closer, but how does that sort of manifest itself?
There's panic growing, definitely, among all sectors of the community. Not only is Kabul swelled in the last week because there's been tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people swelling into the city from the provinces and you know, staying with relatives, that kind of thing. There's been IDP camps popping up in parks, but then there's also a lot of pressure on fuel. That's doubled in the last couple of months, which has sent food prices moving up. There was a run on banks yesterday. I drove past the bank, there was 100 people outside trying to get money out. We understand my colleagues also tried to get money out, they couldn't. Then we understand that the government put a limit on the amount of money that you could withdraw yesterday. Yeah, food prices going up, ticket prices to leave Kabul. The main route, one of the main routes is to Istanbul. It's usually about $350. Yesterday it was $2,400. And One interesting item that has gone up in price, burqas. More people here in Kabul thinking they may need a burqa in the near future, and the prices for that are going up also.
Yeah, and we're going to talk to a guest hopefully about that shortly, Charlotte, some of the issues to do with women at the moment. I'm interested in a little bit more of what you're saying about life in Kabul, about all the sheer number of people coming in there. I mean, where do people go? I guess you stay with relatives, you stay with friends. It's anywhere that you could find shelter.
Yeah, a lot of people are just showing up. I mean, I talked to one girl yesterday. We were actually going to do a story with her about interpreters because she was a US interpreter and she's applied for the SIV visa to get out. She hasn't heard anything from the US and she's becoming increasingly panicked because she says everyone knows I worked with the Americans and yet I haven't had an email. I don't know if I'm going to get out in the next couple of weeks. So we've been talking to her. We were meant to meet with her and she said, look, 40 people just showed up in my house from Kunduz and I have to feed them. They're sleeping on the floor. And we're hearing of this all the time. A lot of people in Kabul are trying to kind of raise donations for people. They've really got nowhere to go. They're too scared to go back to their own provinces. And now Kabul's becoming encircled. And if they want to leave Kabul, now that these provinces have fallen to the east, which was the main way to get to Pakistan, they can't go out that way as of this morning either. So it's flights. And there's only so many planes leaving Kabul, and those flights are incredibly expensive. I mean, $2,400 one way for one person. If you've got a family of 8 and you're an Afghan on a normal salary, there's no way you could do that.
Of course. OK, thanks for all of that, Charlotte. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to connect with our guest at the moment, but hopefully we can do that a little later on.